recognize the elected officials and public officers we have in the room with us today. Would you please stand and say your name and office, please?
I am Constable Catherine Brown, Precinct 4.
I am Beverly Johnson, NAACP Second Vice President and Criminal Justice Chair.
All right.
Nikki Johnson, a Commissioner on the Board of Directors with Opportunity Home.
Thank you, ladies, for the work that you do unselfishly in our community to serve us. Thank you so much. The MLK Commissioner is here. Someone has called you out. I mean, he kind of said it like without a mic, so I was left with no choice. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We want to acknowledge, she's not in the room with us, but we want to acknowledge, she's here! You are right on time! She came in all incognito and everything. I mean, it was perfect. Okay, we are pleased to welcome business exec, community leader, and civic volunteer, Mrs. Erica Prosper Nirenberg, here with us today. There's no way we could have. So glad to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. We honor your strength and resolve, and we celebrate your many years of service as the First Lady of San Antonio, Texas. And we believe in giving people their flowers, okay? Thank you. Thank you so much. We know we don't know what it took, but we thank you. You made it look good. Now I would like to introduce our host for this event and moderator of Fireside Chat in the person of none other than Dr. Wanita Mercer. Wanita is the baby daughter of Michael and Kathy Mercer, and she is a Black woman who embodies service and transformative leadership. She is a 3-time alumnus of University of the Incarnate Word with a BA in Fashion Management, a MAA in Communication Arts, and a PhD in Education.
Come on now.
Specializing in organizational leadership, and she has earned several certifications demonstrating her commitment to lifelong learning. Wanita is an international educator, having taught every level from infants to doctoral students in both the U.S. and China.
China, that's right.
Yes. She's an author of several inspiring books, including When Leaders Love, and her leadership wisdom has been shared across platforms such as Medium's Authority Magazine, MSN, and NASDAQ, to name a few. She is a civic leader, thought leader, a bridge builder, committed to lifting others up and turning conviction into action, which has us in this room today.
Yeah.
She is also committed to positively impacting her community through her service with several organizations, including Leadership, SAISD Foundation, San Antonio Area Foundation, and New Politics. In 2024, she was appointed to the City of San Antonio's Dr. Martin Luther King Commission, where she had the honor of serving as the Scholarship Program Chair for 1 year. She is the founder and CEO of Lead My Heart, an executive coaching and consulting firm that equips leaders to live and lead with purpose, passion, and power. A woman of great faith, Wanita also serves faithfully as a teaching pastor at Vertical Church, where her leadership reflects her deep commitment to community and transformation. Known for creating spaces that don't just inspire conversation, but move people to action. She leads with both courage and compassion. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Wanita
so much. Every time I hear my bio, I'm like, who's that girl? Here I am. Wow. What a beautiful sight. I'm not gonna cry, but I'm a crier, so I'm just saying. I first want to give honor to God because I am deeply honored to host this important dialogue centered on the experiences and concerns of Black women leaders in Bexar County. What began as a suggested solution to a problem quickly became an opportunity to serve, thanks to my dear friend, former MLK Commissioner and member of Ron Nirenberg's campaign team, Dwayne Robinson.
Yeah.
So let's show Dwayne some love, y'all. This moment matters to me because I wanted to remind us as Black women of the power we carry, not just in our vision or our vibes, because we got the vibes, but in our votes. This gathering was invitation only on purpose. First, because I wanted women with access and women who deserve access to be in the same room. Women who are powerful and women who are still discovering their power to get to know each other. We have to be more intentional about that. Second, because I wanted to show you the power of a network. Every one of you is here because of a direct contact to me. If you ever doubted the strength of your network, let this room remind you that there is nothing the women in this room cannot do together. We need each other, and we need to be civically engaged because something has to change. This is not the America that I am proud to call home, and it is not worthy of the blood, sweat, and tears of our ancestors. But we must believe that things can change, and it is within our power to change it. This is the beautiful plight of the American Black woman. We are the women who nurtured and consoled this nation on our bosom, while this same nation slashed our backs. Yes, slave masters demanded it, but I want you to know that it was God who called us to it. What was meant for evil, God used for good. Where would this nation be without the Black woman?
All right.
We were forged in fire, and women forged in fire are not afraid of the heat. So who better than to confront fear, chaos, hatred, and injustice than the Black woman? Angela Davis said it best. When Black women win victories, it is a boost for virtually every segment of society. And that is why it is in everyone's best interest that the Black women are solid, supported, and thriving. And even as free Black women, our God-given assignment to nurture a nation remains. It has not changed. This nation still needs our wisdom, our voice, our discernment, our organizing power, our care, and our fight. And that work does not begin somewhere far away. It begins with us, right here in our homes, our neighborhoods, our businesses, our ministries, right here in Bexar County. And that is why we are here, to listen, to learn, and to engage with Ron Nirenberg about his work in public service and his vision for Bexar County. Not just to understand what he intends to do, but to identify what we can do to move Bexar County forward. So with that spirit, I am honored to welcome someone who understands both the responsibility and complexity of public service. Mr. Ron Nirenberg has served his community with a deep commitment to civic leadership, coalition building, and the belief that local government matters because people matter. This conversation is beyond politics. It's about understanding leadership, responsibility, and how decisions made in local government impact our community and our families. So please join me in welcoming former mayor of San Antonio and candidate for Bexar County Judge, Mr. Ron Nirenberg. Wonderful.
All right.
Okay. This is exciting.
Wow. You have just set an incredibly high bar for this conversation, Dr. Mercer. I want to give her a round of applause.
All right. Come on now.
Inspiring.
I think for me, in this nation, we all feel the weight of needing to do something. I certainly do. There's only so much talking I can do. Now, granted, I do a lot of talking. I can talk about anything. If you know me, you know. Let's talk about it. But at some point, I get tired of talking.
Yeah.
And so I'm so glad that we're having this conversation. So as we get started, before we get into the issues and policies, I want to start with you as a person. Who is Ron Nirenberg? And what values shape how you lead, make decisions, and show up in public service?
That was a really interesting one. I am a father, a husband, and a proud resident of a compassionate community. And what has shaped me in my journey through life into public service is the belief that everyone that we encounter, everyone that we're around, everyone on earth deserves dignity as a child of God.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was interesting. I was just at church services for Pastor Nelson at Calvary Baptist, and there was a guest reverend there giving a sermon about how that we are dual citizens on earth.
True.
We are proud Americans who live in a blessed democracy, and we follow and uphold that democracy. But we're also citizens of another kingdom.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we need to know the difference.
Yes.
And in that kingdom, we are all children of the same God, and we all deserve dignity. And when there's ever conflict among those two things, you know how to lead yourself if you understand the difference.
Great.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for that. I love that you started out that you are a father, and because I think as leaders often talk about that we show up as a whole person, and we can't forget that. That's who we are in every space. So thank you for that. So for many people, the role of county judge isn't always clear. Can you explain in practical terms what the Bexar County Judge actually does day to day and how that role directly impacts issues like healthcare access, housing, public safety, the things that we deal with every day?
Sure. That's an excellent question, and I think it's not asked enough. But the county judge in a county in Texas is the CEO of a very large organization. In Bexar County, it's the county judge is the chief administrator, chief executive officer of a 5,000 plus member organization that serves 2.2 million residents all across this region and has management authority through the budget process alongside 4 other commissioners on the commissioners court. He or she, whoever is the county judge, is the presiding officer of that court. And together they manage and administer through the budget some of the major systems that affect your daily life. The criminal justice system and law enforcement. Okay. They have oversight over one of the largest taxpayer-funded hospital districts in the state. Your money to make sure that we're delivering public health services. We also deal with the incredible challenges of growth. We know what's going on in Texas, a lot of transformation and massive growth in this region in particular, in the suburban and unincorporated areas, while the county deals with infrastructure, roads, bridges, sidewalks, other transportation services, et cetera. It also deals with the election department. So you talk about challenges related to our democracy and the nervousness that people have about whether or not we'll preserve it. Well, the front line of that battle is right here in your local community, because the Bexar County government administers the elections, determines how we handle your voter registration data, make sure that your elections are accessible and safe and secure. So a lot of those systems that we depend on for our daily life are the county judge's responsibility as the chief accountable officer, I like to say. complex organization with a lot of different elected officials that have their own authorities, but that county judge is the single elected official who needs to be responsible, accountable to the public for achieving the outcomes that we need as a community. And I also should add that it's not a judicial position. You don't need to be an attorney. In fact, I don't know how many, I don't mean to offend any attorneys in the room. But I've never met anybody on the street says that the world needs more attorneys. But just to be clear, you don't have to be an attorney to be in this position. You do have to be able to lead, though. And so I should also say, well, why do we call it a county judge then? Well, we're still living in Texas. And our Constitution, which we've tried many times to change, to modernize, is still one that was composed in the 1800s. And so that was a time when Texas was a lot less populated, and those county governments had just a few people. And to balance the power of the county sheriff, they had a county judge to do the administrative work and also had some judicial authority that they no longer execute in these major urban areas.
Wonderful. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because a lot of people, I think, your opponent is kind of using the judge experience that he has. And with regards to people who don't understand that role, that it's executive, not judicial, right? But I do want to back up a little bit, because you are the longest term mayor we've ever had. Yes?
In due deference to some of my forebears, in the term limits era. So Henry Cisneros served 8 years. He served at a time when there were no term limits.
Right.
Walter McAllister, you go back that far, also served during term limits. But since the time we've had term limits in Texas, or in San Antonio, I did serve the length of my term. So I left office because I had to.
Because some people are wondering, like, why aren't you still mayor?
Yeah. Well, I'm a big believer in term limits, by the way. You need to have fresh perspectives.
Yes.
But yeah, in San Antonio, you can serve a maximum of 8 years in your lifetime. So after you've done doing that in a single position, you've got to move on.
Okay. And some people may not be familiar with your city council experience. How long did you serve on city council?
I served for 2 terms on the city council, 4 years total, in the Northwest Side, District 8. And prior to that, I was just a happy citizen of San Antonio. But to be clear, and I make that statement only because this was not a dream of mine. I don't have a goal of going to the White House or anything like that. I got into this work, and it's very fulfilling, because if you love your community, which I do, and I had fallen in love with this city to a point where when Eric and I were raising our son, he was 1 at the time, and I started getting more involved in the community, what I found was I was a lot more passionate about doing the stuff in the community than I was with my day job at the time. And so I went home one night to Eric and I said, I think I need to run for city council, because that's what I could do all day long. And she said, well, if you're asking me the question, I think you've already made up your mind. Didn't know what I was getting into, by the way, but a lot of young people ask me, well, I want to get in politics. I said, you don't need to go into politics to be a public servant. But if you want to really give back to your community, just do it now. And it might end up that you intersect with a public office one day. But local government is so fulfilling because you do the hard work. We're really not talking heads. Most of the stuff that we have to do in local government to be effective, you have to get in there. You have to do the work, get your hands dirty. You learn so much about how a community functions. It's humbling work, but you really understand people and what makes a community tick. And you can tell those elected officials that are in the Senate and in the houses of Congress who have had local government experience, their feet are firmly on the ground. They know what they're talking about because they've got lived experience. It's incredible work, and it's a blessing to be able to do it.
Thank you so much for that. I love you said it's about understanding people. And that's so true. I don't think we get a chance to really get to know each other enough and how we lead. And so that's an important point. There are a lot of beautiful Black women in here today. And so I want to talk about the fact that you've appointed several Black women to leadership roles. Can you share what qualities, experience, or leadership attributes you were specifically looking for in those appointments? And how those qualities inform the kind of leadership you believe our city and county need right now?
So when I came into office, I wanted to make it a point that we would not just call ourselves a compassionate community, but we would lead that way. And so I wanted to make sure that we led with equity. And I was very proud that the first thing we did in a budget process during our annual process of the city council is we established an equity framework for the city that is still in place. Even though people don't like to say the word in politics, we're still using equity, and I'm very proud that that's continuing to go on. We have a framework that ensures that we look at historic disadvantages when we put resources in the community. So no longer are we arbitrarily allocating our efforts in this community, but we're addressing historical disadvantages. Of course, those disadvantages can't be overcome in a single year. It will take time. But I believe very strongly that equity begins with having a seat at the table.
Yes.
And so when I look to form a staff, when I look at appointing people to leadership positions, I want to make sure that we are representative of the community that we're serving. And so I've been very proud to put people in positions of authority that reflect our community. Some who have not been at the table before, Latinas, African American women, people in the LGBTQ community, people that need to be seen in leadership positions so everyone else in the community understands that they have a valuable voice in our city. There's so many people in this room. I just got a chance to talk to Nikki Johnson on the way in here. She's been a proud member of our housing commission, which never even existed until we started doing the housing work. Now she's on the Opportunity Home Board. That's a board of 5 people, by the way, and I appointed 2 African American women to it. It's an all-female board. All right. All-female board. Erinetta Pierce, who's had to deal with the dragons in Austin and the Alamo Project. She's been a long-time leader and voice in our community in so many different ways, but having voices of experience, having voices of representation at the table in all areas has been extremely important. And in my own staff as well, one of the people I had gotten to know just as a District 8 council member and seeing her volunteer in different places and just being stunned by her presence and knowledge was a woman many of you might know, Michelle Lugalia-Holland, who became my director of policy, and she has a direct responsibility for the work that we're doing in Ready to Work. She helped formulate that whole proposal, and later on she has moved on to work in Alamo colleges and has done many other great things in this community. But when you give people an opportunity to step up to the leadership position, it paves the way for others, but it also allows them to rise. And so, I don't like giving laundry lists of people, but I can give you a laundry list if you want.
You got one a laundry list?
Someone who's not here who I owe a great debt of gratitude is a woman by the name of Mary Finger. She's a labor representative, and she was responsible for getting our campaign for Ready to Work off the ground. I've been taking so much heat for this project called Ready to Work, but I am so happy to talk to you about the results and the changing direction of poverty in this community, because we're finally giving people a chance to enter good paying jobs and get out of cycles of poverty. And it's because this community voted and made a bet on their neighbors and the potential of each other. We do that through representation. We do that when we bring people into the leadership circles. Jillian Jameson, who is the head of and CEO of CHCS, the Center for Healthcare Services, is one of the most knowledgeable people I know in terms of city management and energy issues. Now she's the chair of our San Antonio water system. I asked her to take the place of a great leader, Bert Noguera, because it's time, again, for fresh perspective and somebody knows how to handle the heat. So there's a lot of folks here who I'm proud to have been able to provide a platform for. But as you said, and I see Bonnie Prosser Elder back there, she got tired of me calling her. But Bonnie, I sent her a copy of the charter, and I said, thank you, Bonnie, for your commitment to governance, because she is responsible for the 7 charter amendments that just changed to modernize. She was the co-chair of the Charter Review Commission. But I'm looking around the room and I see so many people that I've known for just a little while, people in my campaign teams. And I also wanted to point out Jesse. I will never forget. So I've become very good friends with Reverend Kemp because he was the co-chair of our health committee that was helping us figure out how to safely re-enter society as we were getting through the pandemic. And he's obviously a doctor by trade. But he invited me out to go to Antioch one day, and it happened to be when Jess was giving a sermon. And I told him, "You're a great preacher, but she's..." And I was so happy that I'm back at Trinity now, 30 years later, teaching a class. And who is one of the chaplains there? Jessica. And I'm happy to be friends and be a supporter and be supported by our Constable Captain Brown. I mean, if you recognize leadership in this community and are willing to commit to providing a platform for others, you can be like Beverly Watts Davis and be a pioneer for our community. And I can't thank you enough. Reverend Petty. I mean, I'm going to start naming everybody. And you're going to roll your eyes and think I'm like a politician.
Yes, we will.
But wait a minute. We just had an NAACP debate the other night. There's a lot of talk. I bring receipts, okay? Come on, man. Bring the receipts.
I'm your Black woman will ask for them, all right? So I do want to shift a little bit. How many small business owners in here? Woo! All right. So I do want to address this because during your time as mayor, City Council voted to end the consideration of race and gender in San Antonio's contracting policies. Yeah, all right. Shifting to a race and gender blind approach, and many Black women business owners have shared that while the policy may be neutral on paper, the outcomes do not feel equitable in practice. And I do sit here and I say our feelings are valid. Can you share where you stood on that decision at the time? And if elected county judge, how would you ensure that Black-owned and minority businesses are not left behind under race-blind contracting?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a very tough one, and I'll just be upfront and tell you I supported the decision, and this is why. We began the Sabina program with the intent of using points. We were using points to supplement applications of minority and women-owned businesses to get the contracts, procurement contracts from the city of San Antonio. That is the stated purpose by law. And every 5 years, we are required to update the performance. How did we do based on our aspirational goals? And by law, if you are beginning to meet your goals, you have to scale back the points. And so as we've gone on for the last, I think, 15 or 20 years in this program, the goals were being so consistently hit, we're actually exceeding the goals. And the city of San Antonio has been a model organization in terms of minority and women-owned contracting, that our consultant, legal consultant, Colette Holt, an African-American attorney, told us that without the Trump administration's threats to DEI, we would be required by law to start rolling it back because we had been consistently exceeding the targets. So we decided to do that. I know there was a lot of concern about Trump's rollback threats against DEI, but the reason we did that was because legally, when the program was instituted, it was under the legal authority of those aspirational goals being met. And so we had to do that by law. Unfortunately, because of all the political noise now, and the threats to DEI, you have politicians cowering, not even being willing to say DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I am not that one of those people. We have to continue to lead with that. And we can do that in other ways. We can keep our goals, but we can't award the points. And so we can monitor our goals without awarding points and make sure that if we fall backwards and our contracting doesn't actually reflect the number of women businesses and minority-owned businesses in the community, then we've got to do something. And this is what I'm doing about it. So I worked with Judge Wolf and with Congressman Castro, who was very concerned about minority and women-owned contracting across the public space here in San Antonio. We need to do better in a number of entities. So I pulled together an initiative called Supply SA, which is, I was just telling someone this before the conversation, 14 public agencies in this community, Bexar County, San Antonio, CPS, SAWS, University Health, a lot of different public entities, combined spend $10 billion of your tax money every single year. If we can do a better job of being more efficient, getting businesses like yours enrolled so that they're recognized as eligible vendors, they're registered, that they have less red tape to go through, because right now in 14 agencies you got 14 different applications. But we can develop a single front door for public contracts. We can make it a lot easier for women-owned businesses, minority businesses to develop through public procurement. So that's the effort that is underway now. I want to get Bexar County's full-throated support of that. They're at the table, but it's been a little bit herky-jerky. We need to make that smooth, but that's the way in an era of rollback of DEI and in a situation where some entities like the City of San Antonio are meeting procurement contract goals, but others are not, that we can make sure that all the boats rise and all of the businesses that you represent here have a better shot of those contracting dollars.
Thank you for that. Where do we stand with certification? And the reason I say that because, when I got Leap My Heart certified, not just regionally, but also with the federal government to be able to do contracts, it was hard. Yep. It was too hard. Yep. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. So I got some oil, I got some hand holding, and I got it done. Yeah. I'm the minority. It shouldn't be that hard, but then I get it to then be told, you don't want to be identified as minority-owned. You don't want to be identified as Black-owned or woman-owned. So what's your advice on that? Where do we stand with that?
So the board of Supply SA was taking this under its wing as one of the primary first objectives. I think it's the South Central Texas Regional Certification Entity, CSC. Did I get it right? Yeah. Is notoriously cumbersome and challenging for small businesses. So they were completely revamping that, and it was going to be UTSA that was taking on the process of creating a new certification entity that was universal in this community. And I see some nods of heads like you know more about it than I do at this point. But where we stood a few months ago is that UTSA was going to redevelop the certification process and was streamlined, and that we can get over the challenges that you were experiencing through the SCCR. See, if you can't even recognize it.
Right. It doesn't roll off the tongue.
But here's the thing. This is why it's so important, and it's so bureaucratic, and it's off the radar of even the local newspapers. $10 billion of our local taxpayer dollars every single year are being contracted to do work. And so many times we see some of these same firms get awarded the contracts when just a fraction of it would help small businesses be able to develop and grow payroll. So that's why it's so important that we do this.
I would also add that, you get past all the red tape, but then you have these policies and procedures of having to pay for things up front and wait a month to get paid. We're not in the position to do that. And I understand that, but that doesn't help us grow when we're not in the position, and a lot of us, to take on those upfront costs. So just some food for thought.
Yeah.
Not really a question there, but.
Little PSA also, and on that note, there's a couple of committees at the City of San Antonio, and I know there's some at Bexar County also. If you are interested in representing a small business voice in San Antonio, volunteer for one of these boards and commissions. There's a commission that represents small businesses on just the SBETA, the Small Business Economic Development Priority Programs that we talked about. There's a new Small Business Advocacy Committee as well that I formed that is just general advocacy of small businesses. So I know you have limited time. You're doing everything for your business, but if you have a little bit of capacity to help deal with some of the policy issues, we need people who are actually in the trenches with their own businesses helping to inform policy.
All right, sounds like a call to action. All right. So, nonprofit leaders, where are you? Right? Okay, so here's a question. You know, many Black women-led organizations sustain our communities through non-traditional funding models, such as earned income, social enterprise, sponsorships, faith-based support, and collective giving, often because traditional grants and city funding aren't built for how we operate. So how can cities and public funders better recognize, legitimize, and invest in these models as serious infrastructure for long-term cultural and community sustainability?
It'll sound like a cop-out, but my previous statement about getting on those boards is really important. These systems of grants and procurement, even the nonprofit grant system, which we do now every other year, and we try to focus on major areas like child and family well-being. There's another one on educational access. Even those things operate with bureaucratic subconsciousness sometimes. And so as there are new funding models, as there are new opportunities to supplement earned income, we need to hear from you about how we can better provide those grant opportunities, what they need to look like, or else things will not change. And so I would encourage you to sit on those boards and commissions. We were able to create new grant programs during COVID because we heard just how much the circumstances have changed. We also need to do that with the nonprofit community. And in the city of San Antonio, nonprofits are referred to as delegate agencies. And the reason why they're called delegate agencies is because we recognize without the work that you perform in the community, our whole community wellness would suffer. And so we don't have the expertise, the government doesn't have the expertise to deliver those services, so we delegate those essential services to nonprofits. We recognize those are essential, we can't do without them, so we need nonprofits to do that work. That funding will not go away so long as we have that philosophy.
Thank you for that. We also have quite a few faith leaders in here. Raise your hand, faith leaders. Sure, yep. Okay, and so we're nonprofit, but we also serve on the front line of delivering a lot of those services, whether it's mental health. You know, Dr. Petty, the work that she's been doing with Pastor Blue, and there's so much that we experience on the front line in serving our community. So how can we bring more faith-based leaders to the table? Let's say at the Bexar County label, like what would that look like for you as judge?
So I'm going to confess that a former colleague of mine put in a proposal to develop a faith-based liaison for the city of San Antonio. And when I first saw it, I thought, wait a minute, we're getting really close to the line here because I do believe in separation. However, we also recognize that this is a city of faith, and we recognize that amidst all of the polarization and the distrust, the lack of community contact that we have in the world, there's very little dialogue happening in our communities with people of different backgrounds. And that's the lifeblood of making community work. How do we overcome differences, recognize differences, and strengthen ourselves through that diversity? The only place where that's an exception is your church. When you go to a faith congregation, you have people from all walks of life. And we are in community together. And so where there's a erosion of trust in the media, in government, in education, even in medicine, the one sanctuary from that is our faith community. And so I began understanding that in a different way. And I have become, and I have been friends with pastoral community from many different faiths in this community for a long time, and said, why don't we start meeting together with a purpose of figuring out where the challenges are in our community and using our convening power as faith leaders and government leaders working together to help move the needle. The first thing we started to tackle was affordable housing and homelessness. And so my point in all that prelude is that I believe that the faith community serves an essential function in making sure that this community is well and that it thrives. And the creation of the faith-based liaison was one of those powerful moments that we can take advantage of. The previous faith-based liaison, who is now retired, Ann Helmke, a convener of the interfaith community, served that function very well. I hope we keep it. And for those of you who are in the faith community or not, I would advocate, or I would ask you to advocate for keeping that position in the city of San Antonio. I would also do the same as Bexar County Judge, that we have a convener for our faith community that finds the intersection between our congregations and the work that we do as civic authority to help our communities thrive. And you know, as a person who, you know, I live every day through my faith, I think it's essential for civic leaders to have an understanding of the power that the congregations of the community have. And like, I'm thinking about things here, so I'm just going to tell you. I have a very strong relationship with an organization called Cops Metro. Together, we've worked on some important initiatives, such as Ready to Work and the affordable housing framework and ultimately the plan. When Cops Metro and the Mayor's Office of San Antonio work together, we can move mountains in this community. And it's not the nonprofit itself, it's the congregations. They represent all the congregations. So it's an essential function of a thriving community. And I think that that's one of the ways that we can move it forward. I'm sorry, you brought up a lot of memories.
That's the point of a conversation, right? So we're getting close to time, so I want to be mindful of what is shared. I want to make sure people leave with some good information. I do want to address one elephant, and that is that, you know, some Black people in the community have said, you know, I didn't feel the benefits of his leadership as mayor. You know, I don't know where we're going as Bexar County Judge. And so what do you say to the naysayers and the critics that you didn't do enough for the Black community?
Well, I would say, help me understand why. You know, I look forward to opportunities to learn more about my community, where the blind spots and the gaps are. I will also remind folks that when I started as a city councilman, but certainly as mayor, we made equity the foundation of policymaking. And like it or not, we live in a city, we live in a community that has been one of the most socioeconomically and racially divided communities in the country for generations. And it's one thing to be dedicated to solve it. I'm sorry, it's one thing to say that's a problem. We want to solve it. It's another thing to take action to do it. And I'm not going to sit here and promise you that we can change the degree of poverty that we've experienced over the last 80 years in a single mayoral term, or that we can fix the racial divides of the community in a year or two. What we have to do is put our community on a path to equity and prosperity for everyone. And if you look at my record, if you look at the work that we have done, we are on that path. What I am dedicated to doing is putting systems in place that ensures that Black San Antonians, Hispanic San Antonians, Asian San Antonians, white San Antonians, everyone has an opportunity to thrive in this community. And when my time is done, because it's only 8 years, that we will stay on that path, and that whoever takes the baton from me will continue on that path. So I look forward to sitting down with people. You know, my wife is here on the front row. She doesn't agree with everything I've done either. But I'm confident that when we sit down and talk about where we need to go together, we can come up with the best solutions.
Thank you for that. Well, you're in good company because we criticize Barack Obama too. You know, I saw a recent, it was like some kind of interview with him, and they were asking him the same thing. So don't, you know, they were saying, you know, you didn't do enough. And you know, he gave a real answer, and he said, I didn't. what could have been enough to address systemically all the things that have happened. And so it's not on one person. I certainly don't believe that, and I don't want us to believe that in this room, that we have to work together. And I love that you started with, help me understand why. And that's what we have to say, y'all. But thank you so much for your answer. Share with us your agenda. You have this really nice book, but guess what? If you want to hide information, you write it down, right? That's what they say. So share with us, what's your agenda? It's really nice though.
So I want to shout out to my campaign manager over there, Laura, if you want to talk to her. She agrees with you. She, like everyone else, every political consultant I've ever met says, don't put stuff that you're going to do in writing. Because then they'll hold you accountable. And so I say, well, that's the point. I want people to know what I plan to do. And I want to be held accountable to what I say I'm going to do. And so I do hope you pick that up. I did one of those before I became mayor, and I did one of those before I ran for city council as well. But this is, I'll break it down into four main areas. And it's all under the service of, I believe in this community in a brighter future for all of us, and I believe that we have all of the assets and resources and human ingenuity in this place to be one of the most prosperous and resilient places in Texas. I genuinely believe that. And it requires teamwork, cooperation, and alignment to get there. And so, how do we do that? I'll give you an example in public safety and law enforcement. We've got to do two things. One, we've got to make sure that our officers and our law enforcement entities are well resourced and trained and staffed so they can do the work of fighting crime and keeping our communities safe. We also have to invest upstream. And I tell people all the time, if you want to fight crime, make sure that you invest in the best law enforcement that you can. If you want to prevent crime, make sure you give people good jobs and education. And so upstream, we have to invest in good quality jobs, education, and healthcare. So, and we have some problems we got to deal with: case backlogs, jail conditions, the lack of a diversion facility, etc. Secondly, this is one of the most rapidly transforming places in Texas. The growth is occurring. We have talked about this for a decade or more, and it's happening largely in unincorporated and suburban areas. We don't have a plan for that. In fact, today, in Bexar County, we're still building colonias, communities that are not connected to infrastructure, running water, sanitation services, public safety services. We got to stop doing that. It's 2026. And so developing a regional plan with all the other 26 municipalities and the unincorporated areas to use the tools that we have to ensure that regardless of whether you live in the hinterland, unincorporated area, or you live in urban San Antonio, that you can expect good quality infrastructure and essential services. We have the tools to do that. It's not always going to be within municipal authority. Sometimes we're going to have to use our tools to require developers to do certain things. Sometimes we can help those unincorporated areas actually become cities of their own. But we can do the things that are necessary to make sure that nobody is living in substandard conditions. We also have to make sure that we're ready for any risks. Emergency preparedness, emergency management is under the purview of the county. Thirdly, we've got to make sure that people have opportunity here. Growing jobs, education, making sure that we continue our workforce efforts, and most importantly, in a community that has some of the strongest resources in healthcare, public and private sector, I think we have the opportunity to actually find a way to ensure that none of the 2.2 million residents of Bexar County have to go to the ER for essential care. We can do that here, and we can make sure that we have the proper resources to make sure that people aren't in jail who simply require medical care as well. And then lastly, on a more wonky note, we've got to modernize government in the county. Yes. We're still operating like it's the 1800s, and we are still dealing with backlogs of voter registrations in the elections department. We've got to fix that and audit that. We've got to make sure that we have a system of dealing with redundancies, so we're not wasting people's money doing duplicate efforts out in suburban areas. We've got to ensure that we're being efficient with people's dollars, and frankly, we also need a system of ethics to make sure that we are operating with the highest transparency in county government as well. So there's a number of different things that are in that plan tactically that I want to do, but those are the 4 main areas that I think we can move the needle here in service of being the strongest and most resilient place in Texas.
There's been some criticism regarding your timing of choosing to run. Why now?
There's no better time than now.
I agree.
Look, I mean, I'll address the other elephant in the room, which is that, you know, I admire Peter Sakai's service as a children's court judge. I really do. He served admirably there, but that's not the job we're applying for.
No.
That's not the job we're running for. The job of county judge is the CEO of the county, manages some of the most complex systems in our community, and it requires the skill set, frankly, of a mayor. And so I'm running because we can do better. We can no longer continue to tolerate pointing fingers for problems not getting solved. It requires accountability from the top. The reason why you select the leader of any organization is to make sure that the organization delivers the outcomes you need, and that person needs to be accountable to them. And that's what we lack right now. And so the time now, I'll just share politically. I turn on the TV, I am frustrated as all get out. I'm concerned for our country. The truth of the matter is, Texas would be different. This country would be different if people voted.
Yeah, come on now.
You know,
You had mentioned at another point where how many Democrats?
yeah. Not a partisan statement, but in Texas it is. There's 1 million more Democrats registered to vote in Texas than there are Republicans.
Wow.
So, you know, imagine, why aren't they voting? They're not voting, in my view, because of the fact that they've lost faith that government even is worth their time. And they form that opinion based on their own experience in their own communities. Are there problems that they experience on a daily basis getting solved? And so we continue to focus only on the highest offices of the land, and certainly those things need to change. But in order for real change in our community and our country to occur, we got to start working at the grassroots. We cannot just elect people because they subscribe to the same party we do. We've got to make sure that they perform. And so my hope for this country is really distilled down to a quote that I was told was said by Mother Teresa, but I've also been told that that's not true. But I'll just say it, that if you want to change the world, you start with your front porch. And so that's my philosophy. I started this work because I love this community. If I thought that the main obstacle for progress was at the state or the federal government, and granted they are definitely obstacles, I would focus more on that. But the truth is that doesn't matter until and unless we solve the problems in our own backyard.
Right.
And that's why the time is now.
Right.
All right.
Wonderful. So, as we come to a close, as these women step into the voting booth on March 3rd, or early voting, which starts on the 17th, right? What do you hope they remember about you, your values, and your vision that earns their vote?
That despite sometimes getting as fiery of a speech that you gave in my own home, I go home to a wife I am so proud to be married to, and she still is proud of the work that I'm doing.
Yes.
There's a high bar of expectations when you have women leaders at the table. You can't slack off. And I've got someone married to that keeps me focused on that. But this is what I would like them to remember. I love this community. I've put my heart and soul and my neck on the line for this community through some of the toughest times we've ever had in the nation. We thrived together because we worked together in coalition to overcome a pandemic, and not only did we survive, we have significantly moved this community forward in terms of economic opportunity through free community college and workforce development, pre-K, through housing. We've done a lot of great work together, but I've done it because I love this community.
Yeah.
I have been honest. I've held myself to the highest standard of integrity, and I will continue to do that no matter what walk of life I am in.
Thank you so much. Wow. So that concludes our fireside chat. Thank you so much for joining us today. And next we're going to have a guided reflection.
Y'all give it up for Ron and Wanita, please. I absolutely love their energy. I just absolutely love, and she is exactly who he says she is, and he is. Definitely. And she did confess that she said, I didn't agree with everything he did.
She's cheered me out a few times.
Yeah. No, seriously, and giving us the insight into that, and, real people. Yeah, real honest people. Yeah. I was made aware of this, Dr. Mercer, that the first MLK commissioner is here. The very first MLK commissioner is here. Yes, definitely. Yes, the very first. So that's an honor. And also in 2020, Dr. Keely Petty, we actually have 4 MLK chairs here, 4 MLK chairs here. Would y'all stand? We just want to acknowledge for the work that you've done. Yes! Come on in the same room! Come on in the same room! Talk about community.
And other commissioners.
And other commissioners. Talk about greatness.
Other commissioners stand, please. On the MLK Commission. Okay.
Wonderful. Yes. Thank you so much. That was an incredible conversation. Now it's time for a guided reflection. But first I would like to introduce Maya Alexander. Maya is a 2025 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Scholar and a freshman at the University of Texas at Austin, where she is studying communication and leadership. And she's a pre-med student. Right, a proud graduate of Churchill High School. Maya represents the next generation of thoughtful, engaged leaders, and we're grateful for her presence and support today. So please join me in welcoming Maya again.
Hi, thank you. I'm so proud to be here and so honored. This gathering wasn't just about hosting an event. It was about creating a moment where Black women, leaders, and emerging leaders could pause long enough to reflect, to listen, and to become more aware of the power we already carry. Because civic engagement doesn't start with a ballot. It starts with awareness. It starts with learning something about our community, about our systems, about what's working and what isn't. Then we organize around what we've learned. And then we do something. For some, that action may be voting differently. For others, it may be advocacy, community leadership, or service. And for a few, it may be running for public office. But every path begins the same way, with awareness and connection. So I want to invite you to reflect, just for a moment, on 2 questions. You won't answer out loud, but I encourage you to name it. Write it down, text it to yourself, or use your notes app on your phone.
Yes, get your phone.
First, what is one new thing you learned today? It could be about leadership, policy, perspective, or possibility. And second, what is one next step you are willing to take towards an issue that matters to you? Not the biggest step, just the next one. Because awareness without action fades, but awareness paired with intention, creates momentum. As we close, I want to remind you that civic engagement doesn't require permission, and it doesn't have to wait. Here are a few ways you can take action before you even leave the room. First, connect with another woman here around a shared issue or cause you care about. Commit to reading the voter guide so you are informed on all candidates in the March elections. Use your voice online. Post about today's gathering and encourage others to vote and stay engaged. Stop by Ron Nirenberg's campaign table to learn more about how to volunteer, make a financial contribution, or pick up a yard sign. And most importantly, vote. Vote informed. Vote intentionally. Vote as an act of stewardship for yourself, your family, and your community. Remember this. We Black women have an assignment, and that assignment is to nurture a nation. Let's work in every place God has called us to. We're needed.
Woo! Go, Maya!
Y'all say go Maya! Go Maya! Go Maya! That was amazing, Maya. We are so proud of you. A room full of aunties. All right. That's it. That's it. Okay, so as we close, I want to say thank you on behalf of Dr. Mercer. Thank you so much for being here. And give yourselves a hand. I mean, y'all really did it. Like, we did it. Thank you to every woman who showed up with intention, curiosity, and courage. This event was quite a pre-game show. Thank you, Ron Nirenberg, for your willingness to listen, engage, and meet us in this moment. Thank you, Dr. Mercer, for curating the space for Black women to engage, learn, and for us to grow in. How many of y'all feel different? Feel different. Thank you, Dwayne Robinson, for your support of this event. Thank you, Pastor Will, for covering this space in prayer. We did what matters most today. And this concludes our fireside chat. Now we invite you to engage with Ron and his campaign and engage with each other. And until next time, y'all have safe travels home and go Seahawks or go Patriots. I don't know. Go